Welcome on another episode of Democracy Innovators podcast, and our guest of today is Gareth Farry. And we met in kernel community, and I saw your project that was really interesting. And I don't know, like as a first question, I would like to ask you like something about your project, and maybe then we see something about your background and.
Sure. Well, I mean, my project actually ties into my background, so I'll just dip into that for a little bit. I trained as a lawyer 20 years ago, or a bit more maybe, and got admitted to the bar as a barrister and solicitor. I'm calling from Auckland, New Zealand, and then in the preceding 20 years, I've kind of always remained interested in it, just from a social justice point of view, and I've worked a lot in social impact and arts and music. And always sort of with a social conscience, I've been drawn to music and art expressions like that. So law naturally works into that as well. And I guess in the last 20 years or so, I've really kind of reverse engineered what I got taught at law school, the legal system, which is just one aspect of law. Actually, when you look broader, there's much bigger modalities and jurisdictions and legacies, histories of law. So I became interested in that and have really, I sort of apply the law now. I don't practice and I don't act. I just am a man standing on the land applying the law, which is different to a person who acts or appears personally in the legal system. So they're different statuses in different jurisdictions. And I'm kind of fascinated by what makes up those claims and those statuses in law and using different jurisdictions, how people in the know, sort of have private foundations and private trusts and things and actually operate in different forms of law. So that interested me. And then the convergence of that with blockchain and Web3 technologies, I saw as a natural fit. I used to run a music label, and have artists, and we put out music, physical copies, CDs and vinyl around the world, different jurisdictions, not all the way around the world, but different places, Europe, North America, Japan, etc. And we found that once the shift to piracy and then digital came, it meant we no longer had a business model. So when I found out about digital scarcity and provable ownership in the digital realm, I thought, if that had happened 15 years ago or 10 years ago, it would have just meant that we were totally sweet, because we could have proved ownership, and it would have come at a time when the digital models hadn't developed so much. So now streaming's entrenched, but really, if you wind it back, it was never a good model to develop. It was just the default, and logic of numbers and inertia and economic factors meant that everybody developed it. But really, you could have had NFT ownership and provable ownership direct to the artist, kind of like a Bandcamp model, but on the blockchain, So when I saw the convergence of all that stuff, and also with identity, same thing. We have these passports and we have to carry them around. Our identity is defined for us by governments and other verifiers and issuers, etc. And it doesn't make any sense if you're talking about establishing yourself in lawful status, because you need to define your identity, and you need to define how you interact and what status you do so economically, privately, socially, whatever, So there's different statuses to employ. So it was really convergence of all those things. Working on a project we're calling it SILT at the moment, which is just sovereign, or it could be self-actualized identity layer tool. And it's just a blockchain tool that talks about the status of the holder and provides tools to in law, and also just in natural law, and opening the spaces for self-actualized identity, so for people to determine their own ritualistic way to imprint their first identity. And then you have different aspects of law that you can dip in and out of and use different statuses, but you do it with paperwork and international law. And you got to make claims. It's the thing that people don't understand. With identity, you have to make claims, because there's claims out there that have been put in your name, the birth certificate and things like that, and they're not generated by you, and you don't control them. And that's the cause of a lot of economic troubles for people because they're operating as a person in the legal system. And they're subject to rules and regulations and blah blah blah. But actually, if you change your status, you're not subject to any of that. You go a higher jurisdiction. So, yeah, my background and my project are really convergence of all that stuff. So identity, law, and just the whole blockchain aspect of provable ownership and peer to peer and freedom technology is kind of where I'm fascinated by. I mean, I'm probably like you. We met in Kernel, and we talked. I saw you had a lot of ideas, and I was like, well, this guy's really, you're in there and you're testing things, and it's cool because you get excited about it because the technology is freedom technology if applied right. At the moment, it's like a casino, right? But freedom technology is where my head at. But that's a long intro. Sorry, but you jump in there.
No. I mean, I really like what you said about reverse engineering the legal system, like to understand what has been explained as something that there is the legal system, but then can be like taught also in different ways, and also for like I would say good things, because I mean, my impression like that law. Also, if we see where it came from, like, I mean, the first universities, they were about law or theology, that were like something that was very useful to power, to control, like the land and people. But it's I saw also, I was really impressed by maybe there are more lawyers that are interested in blockchains because of this similarity than maybe other people. I don't know, philosopher or.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that most of the lawyers are interested in the point of view because there's a lot of work to do. It's interesting, novel area as far as pairing regulation with the blockchain and how things work, and that all those questions around, say, DAOs and who bears responsibility, and all this idea of digital ownership and how it transfers into real life, the real world, when it has aspects of harm or a promise being made or whatever, a bill of exchange, etc. So there's a lot of work to be done to sort all that out, and that's one jurisdiction. I'm not really an expert in that. Could be, but I'd have to go and do another few years training and just go in there full on to be able to really comment with any authority on that. So I don't really work in that area, but there's plenty of work for lawyers. I'm really more of a law researcher, or I apply the law in a broader sense. So I wouldn't really. I mean, I am a lawyer, a qualified lawyer, but I don't go around saying it.
I totally understand you. Like, I mean, what we studied, or like the degree that we have obtained, it's just a name. It's just a label.
It's like everything else we're learning about. It's just a slither of the real truth. It's just a little slither that served special interests. Look at the sciences. Or look at the health. There's no nutrition mentioned, and the sciences. There's no non-physical aspect to it at all. Whereas we know, that a lot of the aspects that generate the matter and generate the changes in our world are actually non-physical. These subtle forces of the universe can't be seen, and they're non-physical. They're in different realms. So, and we're starting to, it was written in the East thousands of years ago, but in the West we're starting to understand that and starting to apply it. But the universities will possibly never apply that. So,
Yeah, and it's very interesting. I mean, I'm thinking that university are like some sort of centralized organization, and it can be interesting to see something decentralized. And
academia is dictated, and you can only speak about certain things, and it's the peer review system is just entrenched power dynamics, like all the institutions. Everything needs to be decentralized. I mean, the power of the masses and our thought processes and our ability to come up with novel ideas and use AI properly, which the human mass crowdsourced in combination with AI can run any system, any country. We just need to be given the tools to do it. And I think that blockchain provides a lot of tools to do it, whether it's bigger DAOs or whatever it might be, or even deliberate democracy off the blockchain is still really good. But we've reached a point now where we don't need the political class, and we don't need the institutions. They've got the knowledge, and it doesn't really go anywhere. All the novel stuff is kept out. So for me, that's another part of the thing.
And about I mean, your project, your experiment with the DAO connected with Amnesty, like, what are your impression, thoughts? What happened? Like, how did you?
Well, we're just we're at the stage now of just finishing a white paper, and then we're going to do hopefully some sort of we're doing MVP and hopefully some sort of semi-public launch. We'll be using three or four different countries in the Amnesty region, so Taiwan, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, possibly one more. And we're going to do a little experiment in crowdsourced advocacy or human rights promotion through a DAO, through the MVP. So yeah, the whole idea with that is that, Amnesty International has, I'm working with Amnesty. I've been doing it for 3 years now, so I really enjoy it actually. And they've got a 10 million member registered worldwide database of members. That's people who actually answer the emails and sign on as members, which is only probably a minority of the actual potential database. But anyway, so 10 million across 70 different countries, and they've got no coordination mechanism. And they're at a point now where Amnesty is operating quite a historic model, sort of grassroots advocacy, but really more of analog, so to speak. So to move it into the digital space and allow some of the core principles of blockchain technology to apply to really enhance human rights and transparency, governance rights, crowdsourced ideation, reporting of verified journalism, supporting grassroots activism straight from blockchain and smart contract payments, etc. So that sort of stuff has happened in projects around the world, especially when it comes to paying UBI to, say, refugees or migrants or whatever in humanitarian situations, for instance. But it hasn't really been done on the scale that we're thinking of. Well, we're testing it, and we're going to test probably 2 or 3 different chains, because you need to get a few quotes, so to speak, for the business, but for the organization. But we're excited about the fact that it could be quite a really powerful way to bring human rights advocacy and sort of mainstream it a little bit as well. Coordinate, incentivize actions that bring about anti-racism, or might be just other aspects of human rights, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, these sorts of things. We can start to identify what they are, and then we can reward and promote them and fund them through a mechanism like a DAO. So a lot of DAOs are looking ideas, looking for a community. We're a massive community that desperately needs coordination and to enhance what we do and to really leverage and add value to the 10 million people already who are sort of in there, talking about things. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me. It's just a matter of getting it in, getting it done. But yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about this experiment with the 4 different countries. Is it more on that you are still projecting this experiment, or do you already know which kind of software can be used? I don't know.
Well, we were funded from this first stage. The first chain that we got a partnership with was Cardano, because they were just really open, and I know there's a lot of social impact stuff happening there. And through the Project Catalyst, we got funded. So I'm partnering with Rosalind as a friend and colleague, Paris-based, who is sort of deep in the ecosystem with Cardano and social impact. He runs Web3 Impact and Sustainable ADA and organizations like that. So he is my partner in the project, and he's sort of looking after the tech side. But we're talking twice a week, and we're sort of really honing in and drilling down into the tech, and then having meetings, Zoom meetings or whatever with people. We're going to meet in a conference in Dubai in a week's time, so we're going to go through a lot of stuff. But so he's looking after the tech side, but things evolve really fast. And a year ago it would have been completely different. As things evolve in tech, but now I really feel like cross-chain interoperability is cross-chain tokenization and things that have just in the last little while have become a lot easier, I feel, and it seems like there's a lot more functionality and amazing things, and AI integration, certain aspects, especially when it comes to structure, perhaps, or governance structure, is all coming online. So it's hard to really nail down the tech, but you have to put a flag in the ground. So we're going to do it on this stuff, but we're pretty close to confirming things here. And then it'll just be a sort of reasonably simple 1 or 2 pages. The idea is to earn a token and burn the token. So you're going to earn it by doing advocacy or doing something, or skills enhancement, or having your say, or reporting on a human rights action in the community, or whatever it might be. We're not sure yet. I've got to talk to the countries and figure out what works best for their supporters. And then you can burn it by voting on a proposal or something else. I'm not sure what else. Some sort of other reward system. So that's kind of what we're gonna aim to do probably in September.
Okay, I'm very interested in knowing which software and which solution. And I'm curious because as you said, and I was all looking also on your website. I mean, you participate in many social impact projects, and I was wondering when you had this connection with the blockchain world that you thought, okay, we have to make a DAO, and it can work.
Well, yeah, I kind of just briefly touched on it earlier, but it was actually because I was in music, and a friend of mine, a couple of friends, one based here, one based in the UK, over a period of 3 or 4 days, maybe about 2020. It was just when the whole COVID pandemic was starting, and I was like, what are we going to do? And I lost a lot of work because I didn't get vaccinated, so I'm not interested in that. I mean, people can do what they want, but for me, I'm like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. So I lost a lot of contract work, and I was kind of like pivoting. It was just the right time, and needed something to get into. And when the penny dropped, when I found out about that idea with music, you could, because at the time there was a young artist in South Auckland, young Polynesian artist. He was only 17 years old, and Jason Derulo, who was like a #1, American pop star, took a TikTok little link of him and put it in a song, and the song went to #1. And then there was this kind of like thing, semi-battle saying, well, that's my song. And then he was up against a giant corporation. He ended up getting, I think, a share of the, points on the record or whatever, share of the music publishing. I think, I'm pretty sure it was sorted out, but I just sort of thought that it was the same time, and it was like, well, if that had been on the blockchain, the future internet, I believe, will be like, you put your song on, you put it on an address on the blockchain. That's the first time it's published, and then anything that the intelligent algorithms of the internet, someone else tries to use that music, even if they do use it, the blockchain will pay you directly your share anyway. It'll be like a secondary sales situation, so you'll get your share no matter what, and there'll be no other use of that particular unique creation or music or whatever it is allowed on the internet, on the new internet. That's what I kind of believe and hope will happen. So everything's provably ownable, and if people want to use it, you just set the creative copyright share system in place, and then it's all done through smart contracts. Anyone can use it, but they've got to give a tiny residual share to the owner instead of everyone just getting ripped off. And even AI should be doing the same thing, I think, because it's drawing data points from everywhere, so it's got the record. So why can't it pay provable shares to everybody, even if it's just a thousandth of a cent? If it's referring to my page, I should be getting a little kickback from that. That would be the intelligent, respectful system, I think. And I think blockchain in the future can do that, but not at the moment. But so when I thought about that for music, I was like, okay, I need to get into this, because I was always into freedom technology, and cross-cultural work and plurality and different forms of governance and consensus and spiritual aspects and all these sorts of things. But the money and the technology was like, well, they've got it all locked down. What are we going to do? Go back to trading gold. It was like, but when I found out about this, for money and for digital scarcity and trading on, through this distributed ledger, I was like, okay, cool. This is a huge missing piece. So then I was in.
Yeah, it's crazy how many things can be done nowadays. I'm thinking, about smart contracts. That is something, I would say quite new. Now it's been many years that we are using them for experiments, but still, I think that they are something not. We haven't discovered all the possibilities yet. Also, because as you were saying, like last year, it was very different in terms of we didn't have AI so powerful, and also AI allows devs to program and have like this interoperability software between different chains. And so I see all the system that is growing. And I wanted to ask something about you, like your personal background, maybe like also starting from when you were a child, like where you lived, like
that's going back a way. I grew up in a little university town called Dunedin in New Zealand, at the South Island of New Zealand. My background is my dad is Lebanese and my mum is Scottish, from Orkney Island, Scottish. So it's kind of like, if you look at the map of New Zealand, the map of the world, New Zealand and Dunedin are down in the bottom right corner. Dunedin's like the south, and then Orkney is like at the top left and the top of the UK, at the very top of right at the top of Scotland, there's a little island like 50k or whatever it is, 100, 200k away, called Orkney Islands. And so my mum's from that area, and before that, sort of mix of Norwegian and English as well in the mix. So that's my kind of background. I mean, I grew up in Dunedin and got involved in music and hospitality and things like that. Did a law degree and anthropology degree, and then moved to the Big Smoke, Auckland, and then sort of worked in music and culture up here for a lot. And yeah, I mean, I did work for the British Arts Council. I ran the arts program in New Zealand for about 7 years, and so I did a lot of cool stuff between the UK and New Zealand and the arts. Had some great times during that period, and also in Asia, worked a lot in Asia because we were in the regional East Asia team. So there was sort of 8 countries. So I worked a lot and made some really great contacts and friends. Still have today in that region. So I've always worked in the cross between arts and culture. I mean, arts, culture, and technology more and more lately. But social impact. That's my favorite. My favorite art is really stuff that says something, whether it's visual or music. My favorite artists are the ones who rock the boat and are political and spiritual and say something different, And so I guess I've always been drawn to that kind of work too.
So you have studied also anthropology. That is but very interesting. Also, the master I'm doing now is, I would say, half history and half anthropology. Also,
cool.
Something about global health in an anthropology class. It's very interesting.
Wow. So you're focusing on particular like health modalities from the past, or what sort of regions are you looking at?
I mean, that one was a class by a professor that he's quite famous, Ivo Quaranta. He's a medical anthropologist, and I really liked the class. And it was very, very interesting about global health from an anthropological perspective in the last 50 years, I would say.
There's so much to know, so much to read. It's like there's just too much. You gotta draw the lines. I'm not going to do anthropological health. I'll leave that to you. Too much information.
But it was very interesting because it was in a way also problematizing the way our relationship with health, and I think it was quite important. It is quite important to do it also with relationship with science and so on. And it's
interesting stuff, because it's like, also I think part of what's happening now is people understanding that you've got to come back to yourself. You actually got to take control, because the world's fucking crazy, and the people that are supposed to be ruling the world are obviously psychopaths, or at the very least, so it's like you got to just sort of say enough's enough for me anyway. But people have to have their own path. But for me, I kind of said, enough's enough quite a few years ago, and said I'm going to look after myself and my own health and my own mind, and just plenty of information there, and just responsibly forge your own path, because I don't trust the government or any of those institutions. They're all corrupt by nature now, not even by design. It's just because they've been around so long and they're so convoluted and so many special interests knocking heads against each other, they have to be corrupt.
You mean the way that I'm thinking about hierarchical system and how they work, and so I mean, if you are on top, it's because someone voted you, and so you make it happy also. It's quite so they have to be corrupt to work.
But I mean, I think that decentralization and distributed knowledge is always going to be way better. So
absolutely. Also, now they are talking about collective intelligence, and I mean, if in the future probably hierarchical system were maybe not only the only way, but the easier way to have like a lot of people that could live together. I don't know. This is what happened historically. But you see now technology as something that could help in the decentralized power. And And like this DAO, I mean, I see that the primary goal of this project include a desire to improve participant coordination for the 10 million member of Amnesty support base. And these are quite ambitious projects that, I mean, it will be awesome to see something similar. And also a question related to how did you start? Like you discovered Web3, I mean, the blockchain world. Then you had some thoughts, but then how did you, like, did you contact Amnesty? Did you already have contact?
They had a contract going for partnerships, and I think they had a bit of innovation in the role. So I just went and talked to them, and at that point, I just sort of said to them, I think there's something really powerful happening in blockchain, and I think that with such a broad offer as kind of the organization around the world that historically, and even nowadays as well, in terms of research and advocacy and pushing and protecting people and advocating for people with prisoners of conscience, etc., that Amnesty kind of owns the ship, so it's a very broad offer. Human rights, I was just like, surely we could find a way that we could incentivize and reward people or record or do something around human rights protection. And I also said that it's an education tool too, because if the example I used, if I had in a room 100 people and said, who put up your hand if you support human rights, like 99% would put up their hand, right? But then I said to them, well, tell me, what are human rights? Tell me about them, describe them to me, or explain what they actually are. Then you'd have the opposite, like 99 people wouldn't raise their hand, because no one really understands what it is, how it applies to your life, and how to use it, and what are the historical crucial moments that led to human rights, whether it's apartheid falling or the death, the end of the death penalty in lots of various countries that Amnesty's advocated successfully for in numbers of countries, 20 something, I think. So these sorts of things, and people who are doing these actions, they should be recorded on blockchains, and people should be able to carry around that reputation, as something, whether it's in the Amnesty DAO or whatever. But these sorts of things are worth value. We've got different forms of value. If you can say there's value in the attention economy or the movement economy, surely there's value in the human rights economy that we can. If I knew you'd been the guy that signed the end of the death penalty in Malaysia, puts a different perspective on things. If you're the holder of that soulbound NFT, it's like, whoa, that opens doors. So why are we not recognizing those things? We've got sports stars and celebrities and blah, blah, blah. We don't really have a lot about human rights, So the combination of all that stuff, I just thought it's got to be something here. We should look into it. And then it just started from there, and it had to do a lot of work, and had to do a lot of explaining to people to understand what it really was about. But the technology, it's about what it can achieve, rather than, you don't need to know TCP IP protocols on the internet to use email and to use the web. We don't need to know that stuff. So blockchain, at the moment, we do need to know bits and pieces, and obviously there's huge ecosystems, building systems and modulars and making them all work together. But we, as the consumer or the user or the individual owning the identity, we don't really need to know about that stuff. We just need to have a good UX and make sure that it all works, and then understand the upside of it. Okay, well, if I own the stuff and I can do something good and it's recorded and it leads to some sort of value in the future, then or I can support my friend or my neighbor who's doing something really amazing that can't get support. I can use the Amnesty tool to crowdsource ideation or support, or fundraise for them, or just support journalists who are doing verified reports and can't get any coverage, but they're doing the verified reports from the ground. So all these different use cases have evolved as we've developed the process in the project itself and the research. But I think it's kind of a no-brainer. So it was just a series of discussions, really. I think presentations, yeah.
I was thinking about a sort of philosophical question in relationship with law and decentralized, I mean, and smart contracts. So, like in our Western liberal democracies, we have the division of power that is executive, legislative, and judicial. I don't know, power. And but sometimes I thought, like with smart contracts, you write the law, and then the law is also executed. at the same time.
You mean when you're thinking of the concept of code as law? I mean, it is executed on the blockchain, but how that relates to sometimes it has implications in real life that we don't really foresee. So obviously, that's a very interesting area of research and questioning and real world application that's coming. Soon we're going to find out these issues and have to sort them out. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, as you say, like in the future we will see. I mean, in the future we will see new technologies, but also I see that. I don't know. I'm thinking about something that can be also, in a way, also this topic, like I don't know, electronic locks for homes. So I don't know, you lend me some money,
yeah,
and we write in the smart contract that every month I have to give you back a certain amount of money, and if I don't know, my electronic lock doesn't open anymore with my key, but it starts opening with
all that stuff's coming. That stuff's coming. It's more like won't be able to get on the airplane, and you won't be able to travel your car out of the city, and you won't be able to refuel it, and you won't be able to do a lot of stuff like, the Chinese social credit thing. Apparently, we're hearing that secondhand. I don't know how much it's true, but we're hearing that sort of situation happens. All that stuff's there. That's why I've been saying, for me, this is one lone voice, and sure there's plenty of others, but I keep saying Web3 we need our own hardware, and our own network, because if they can take down the internet and stop iPhones having any blockchain app or whatever, or Android, then what are we going to do then? Have we thought that through? What are we going to do? So we need to be aware that stuff's coming down the pipeline. That's definitely the logical inertia of what's happening is getting to that point, So we need to do something about it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And also sometimes, I don't know, like there is this idea about social credit score in relationship with technology, and also this kind of gamification system that reward people if they participate in something. And I believe that it can be also in a way some very nice topic if it's made in a centralized way. So I don't know, I imagine like a king, a president that gives like in a hierarchical way. But this is also what happened with capitalism. So I would say that we already live in a social credit score system.
Exactly. We do.
Yes.
It's not called that. It's the same thing. If we think about what living as a free man or woman actually is, if we design, means that all the systems that we design are for the benefit of the natural environment, for people's health, for exploring consciousness, for elevating the human spirit, for all these things. If we could put all the resources towards that, then that would be humanity being free, in my opinion. But we've almost got the opposite. Everything's, health makes you sick, and work makes you poor, and all these things. So
yeah, because maybe cooperation, that is these things we are working on, I think, because at the end every project that wants to have social impact, it means that people have to cooperate together. I think this is the most difficult thing in history. People, instead of cooperating, they start killing each other, or starting before killing each other, they compete with each other, and then at a certain point they start killing each other. And
is it all about resources and money? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've often thought, what would the world be like if we just took away money and we just pretended? So if I went and buy my coffee, I just pretend to hand over the money, and then they pretend to pay the supplier. I mean, in some ways, things wouldn't be that difficult. We just have to learn to cooperate, And the people that didn't cooperate were just idiots, or maybe money was free, and we could have this abundance. Like Musk seems to think we can have abundance for everybody. It's like, but we live in a finite resource planet. So if you're the guy who wants 100 TVs or 100 cars, people aren't going to cooperate with you, So I think that as we mature, the solutions to these systems kind of converge, And I think that we'll get to the point where people have to step up and be mature and responsible and co-steward, environments and relationships and communities, and then and it's already happening on a massive scale. And I think the majority of the world's doing this, but it's just not reflected in the mainstream system and on the mainstream narrative. So I have great hope for humanity, but we need to get this big rock out of the way first. This centralized rock of filth, we need to get it out of the way, man.
Yeah.
Or just develop our own parallel system.
Yeah, I'm very negative in short term. I'm very positive in long term.
I'm kind of the same. Hard not to be super negative at the moment. It's too crazy. But yeah, positive. Also, but all doesn't make any sense though. So you got to think, well, it's got to sort itself out sooner or later. But I mean, who knows how long? I mean, we went to school and we were taught war and like history. It was called history, but it was war. But it's like there's been wars my whole life. It's not history. It's getting worse and worse. So we were taught that it was something that happened in the past, the world wars, which are actually European wars. They weren't world wars; they were European wars. But that sort of war, endless war idea is it never went away.
I was thinking before that it's a sort of cultural problem. I mean, we are used to compete with each other. I mean, the way we are educated, like also starting from school. I mean, we are educated to just think about our grades and not about also the situation in the class. And I think there are some, I mean, in a way it's unrelated, but there are some kind of experiment also related to technology. I'm thinking about the 42 school, where they evaluate people not just on their on what they did, but about all the team. And I think that this help people understanding that it's not just about us, but we are all together, also in terms of resources and.
Totally, man. Yeah, there's lots of books about teal organizations and holacracy and things like these sorts of ideas of horizontal ownership and shared resources, etc. So I think that I do feel it's all happening. I think it's happening in the right way. It just is going to be really take a long time and be unevenly distributed. Like they say, the future's already here, but it's not evenly distributed yet, which is kind of true. There's pockets of people doing amazing stuff for sure.
And when you talk about time, how much, when do you think it's gonna happen? I know it will be just a speculation because we don't know what will happen.
What is going to happen?
No, like I mean, now we are talking also about the possibility to have some decentralized organization for Amnesty, but also maybe for other entities. So I'm thinking about this possible decentralized world where everyone has understood that collaboration is better than competition. And I don't know if we will see this world, but in a way, I think that
I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think that's probably honoring the plurality of the future that we want to see. There's got to be those people who there's lots of people who get the kicks out of capitalism and do really well, and they're quite happy not to care about other people. And there's lots of people who get the kicks out of capitalism and do really well and do amazing things for people. I mean, in some ways, I think probably the majority. Most people I think are really good. So I don't think there's going to be like a complete split. These are just different tools we can use, but we need to. In my opinion, we need to get to a situation where communities and families and cultures and groups of people have ownership over their resources and decision-making power about money creation and money use and responsible stewardship of the resources, etc. So that'll happen incrementally in degrees in different places. I don't think there's going to be a date. It's already happening in some places. And so time-wise, kind of, I mean, it's also about when you decide that you're ready to do it and you embody it, and then the time is now kind of thing. And so, I think it's all happening. I'm positive about it.
So maybe the time is now, like, to start
Time is definitely now.
developing.
Well, we know all time is now. That's another point. Obviously, everything's already happened, and we are living in an eternal present moment. So, when you think about it, everything's going to be all right, and the visions that we can foresee of the future are already here and happening, and just they're a thing because they're thoughts and they have form and content and energy. So they are already building right now. The future's already here. We just vision the future in the present moment, and it is already being built by consensus. So, time wise, amazing. I mean, I like the I think it was a Buddhist koan or something about saying that the Buddha came across two believers, and they fell at his feet. And the first one said, Master, when am I going to be enlightened? And he was like, maybe in 2 or 3 lifetimes. You're doing great. 2 or 3 lifetimes. He's like, oh no, that long, and ran away sobbing. The other one said, well, Master, when will I be enlightened? He said, for you, probably two or three or 4 lifetimes. And he went, oh my God, wow, amazing. So close. And then boom, he was enlightened on the spot, so, I think what is time and what are these things? I mean, there's no rush. I just want, if the world's better for my kids. I mean, we went to school and we got taught things, and it was most of it was just a slither of truth, through a lens of materialism and empiricism and Eurocentrism and over-intellectualization, right? I want for my children to understand the world's cultures and spiritual traditions, to understand different forms of mathematics and hermetics and these sorts of things, the real knowledge of the earth, to understand that, and to be able to use AI tools to earn digital passive income and to do it responsibly. And then they don't need schooling. They are at school at the moment, but I'm also saying to them, hey, this is just one thing. We can learn these things, and I'll teach you some other things as well. And they're not going to go through 15 years of schooling though. Only, we'll be doing other things too.
It's also to explore the plurality of knowledge between different cultures.
So many things. And that was the whole thing around the COVID thing. It was like we had the Western WHO, injection model, and that was it. And it's like, well, even in this country, there's 200 cultures living. It's Auckland City is one of the most per capita diverse cities in the world. Top 5. And so we've got 200 cultures here, but none of them are allowed to say, 5,000-year-old Chinese cultures not to tell us anything about healing for a supposed viral infection. So that all that stuff was like, we've got to move past that, man. That's just benefits one central control system at the expense of everybody else, monetarily, health-wise, spiritually, mind space-wise, the mental damage. So we've got to get past that stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree about exploring different cultures, because sometimes we just think that our is the best one, but that's because we have read on books that our culture is the best one, and this is then also lead to colonization and imperialism and other kind of things. And before you mentioned the word consensus, that is a very interesting word, and I don't know, do you have any thought about it? It's a random question.
It's obviously got different ways of being in different cultural settings, different times. Obviously, I mean, consensus. I live in New Zealand. This is a bicultural nation. We have Indigenous Māori people, tangata whenua, the people of the land. So consensus building in their communities on the marae, which is their meeting houses for their communal discussions, community decision making, and celebrations, etc. So their consensus building takes days, and it's very well measured, and it brings in spiritual aspects and all sorts of things. And then on the other side, the Western, the Pākehā side or the white side in New Zealand, the consensus is very quick and it's got to be done. And you got 9:15 means 9:15, and it's very linear, and there's no concept of what we might call Pacific time. I mean, in the Pacific cultures in New Zealand say time, what time am I going to meet you? It's like, well, we'll meet when the time is right. And if I miss this boat or miss that train, it means I'm not supposed to be there at that time. So you've got to show patience. So consensus building is very difficult, I think, and building it in a digital space. I don't know if you can hard code all of it into smart contract design or protocol design. I think that there needs to be some sort of fluidity to it. And, almost like geospatial fluidity needs to be like a cultural fluidity. So you can have collective consensus building not just individual. Western centric's very individualistic. Is consensus building. I decide this and I decide that, or we decide one vote each, and then you've got the other forms of consensus building that are older, and then newer reflections of that, which are like quadratic, conviction voting, or all these sorts of things on blockchain, which sort of try and honor the fact that we're all different and we all have shifting ideas about consensus and making decisions. So it's a tricky topic, in blockchain and in new tech for sure.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of I have a lot of thoughts in relation to consensus. Is something that because I mean, I think to have a consensus, I mean, if you do not have consensus, in a way you have violence inside of the group, because it could be the dictatorship of the majority. And also I'm thinking that consensus can be reached like but I don't know. I associate consensus with power, like power in a sense that in a horizontal power. Like I don't know. Like today we had consensus about having this chat, and we are in different spaces. But I will say also in the same time. I mean, different time zones. But maybe it could be like specifically about this kind of topic, same time of our lives. That's why we have this consensus. Maybe 5 years ago you didn't have this passion, or maybe I didn't have this.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, you're right. A consensus of meeting of minds and things. It's important. I mean, they're powerful moments, in life and in our new digital connection life. I mean, through Kernel, I've had some good connections with people and good discussions and, consensus about ideas. And everyone kind of comes, I think, to, where we met in that program, everyone sort of comes to it with like a unwritten consensus about what we are here to do. No one's doing exploitative or extractive kind of models that they just want to rug pull everybody or trying to pump coins or anything like that. No one's doing that sort of stuff. So we've already got a consensus about what we understand, what people are kind of about, and then it's just about finding out the details. But I'd love to learn more about, one of the projects that's on your mind around consensus, because I know you talked through a few things that you were working on, but what's the consensus modeling tool that you're kind of doing? Is there one?
What I was working on, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a consensus. If it was to reach consensus, maybe it was a civic participation platform that I've written the white paper, and I've also developed a small prototype. And but eventually I can show it.
Cool. Well, I mean, I think that also point I was going to make before is that consensus. I like the idea of rough consensus, like the idea that we're never going to reach a perfect consensus. It's not going to be unanimous. There's always going to be different viewpoints. But as long as we reach a point where the legitimate, substantial concerns of everybody are answered, even if I say, okay, I'm happy to park it now, and the next version we'll have to revisit it, but thank you for us unpicking what my concern is about where we're headed. As long as we can do that and give everybody an open floor, then we have to learn to have a rough consensus and move forward for the benefit of the alignment of the whole project or the mission, or in our case, human rights. Otherwise we're going to get lost in the weeds if we try and argue every aspect of human rights. So I like the idea of rough consensus. I think it's definitely a kind of workable option. It has to respect all parties' input, though, and so if someone's got a real grievance, you can't step over that, even if there's only one person out of 100. You have to actually deal with that. Otherwise you break the rules of the respect of the consensus building.
I'm thinking also maybe about the like if I'm part of a group of a community and I disagree, of course I can also accept the fact that other people think in a certain way, so I accept that decision. Otherwise I can also decide like to go away, but that sometimes is hard because maybe it's not so easy to find another group. But if that process is made easier by technology, so I don't know, I don't want the blue color, but I prefer the yellow one, I can find another community in an easily way that want to use the yellow color. And then but of course community also have to be in some sort of, they have to be connected. And I'm thinking about all this interconnected world where everyone in a way is free to explore, like to not be in a community where he doesn't feel good, but at the same time he can form another one, or he can join another one, and then eventually that can be mediation, some sort of mediators between different positions. It's not really clear to me now, and I think also for most of the people it's something new, but really
I know what you mean. And also I think it's there's an aspect that we need to sort of unpick about the actual day-to-day actions that we're talking about, because a lot of it is really small things that revolve around reasonably insignificant amounts of money that are just painful and annoying. And if we can remove a lot of that stuff between personal interactions and interactions between us and institution, etc., or automate it through AI to get a lot of that stuff done, then maybe we'll have a bit more space to, elevate ourselves, our thinking higher, and try and reach consensus by letting some of that stuff go and concentrating on things that are going to be more beneficial to have consensus about. I mean, a lot of stuff that happens with consensus building and governance and things is it's just kind of nitpicky, and people are sort of sticking onto their ideas and thinking their vision of this, the way that things should be governed, is the best one, and it's somehow going to be like a edifice that they can construct in the future, and it's going to house everybody. And I just don't know if that's going to be the case. I think things are going to have to be really fluid, and people are going to have to let things go, and we've got to use technology to get rid of some of the crap in our lives, some of the things that we end up having to do bureaucratically or whatever. It just it's not good for us to be constantly calibrating the universe day by day.
I mean, there are a lot of things that doesn't really have sense in our society. I mean, we do them because we think, we live in our society, we do not question things, we just do them.
It's bad for your health, though,
If?
It's bad for your health as well. If we know things are wrong and we don't question them or try and do the incremental little thing to change or whatever, then it's going to kill you in the end. That's my, it's my personal experience. Either you got to deal with it head on and realize that even our range of what we think is living a healthy and happy life, I think is just severely restricted and bounded within within limits that don't really affect the true potential. I mean, I think we could be living intergalactic lives of bliss and co-creation, and that's and at the moment we're not really getting too close to that. So
you mean like the attitude of thinking that having a long life is better than having
having a long life, or maybe having a lot of luxury things and living like having unlimited material wealth. Some people would say it would make them happier. I mean, it would make me happy to have unlimited material wealth, but then the challenge is how to use it and how to ensure that you don't get lost in materialism, because at the end of the day, that's not going to be for your happiness. So, these ideas about happiness and what we really want for the world and individually, I just don't think we have any perception of what we're capable of as humans and where we are in our evolution or devolution or whatever it is, whatever path we're on, in the cycle. So, yeah, I'm not restricted in my thinking in that respect.
Yeah, some years ago I was questioning about the meaning of life, and I wasn't able to give a reply to myself. So I thought, okay, I'll think about excluding some things. So I was thinking, like, is it a good car, like a beautiful car, the meaning of my life? And so I was, no. Is it a good, beautiful home? No. And so I was doing all these things to discover what was the meaning of life. And actually, I don't have I don't know what is your
The meaning of life is just to keep asking that question and keep wondering. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think anyone comes to that thing. I mean, the meaning of life is to give life to life. To be life, to be in it, be alive. And then halfway there, in my opinion. But there's many things we can never know, brother. I don't think. We're not really. Yeah.
So it's always a question and never a reply, never an answer, I would say.
I think so. I think that's the beauty of it. We don't really get an answer because in this form we're not capable of understanding what that answer could be. I think it just goes on forever.
Yeah. Also, giving an answer sometimes can be dangerous.
I think so. Yeah, there can't be an answer to that question. Yeah.
And I mean, going back to the DAO, like, how do you imagine it? Like, or also, like, what are some goals that you expect from this? Or also something you are struggling with? I don't know. Maybe there is something you're not able to do now.
I mean, really, for me, the biggest challenge is implementation and just continuing to have people see the vision and get people on board, and the tech stack and just the different elements of that. The biggest challenge, I think, is actually confirming a tech stack to test and leave it malleable enough that somehow we can predict the future to always be able to adapt and evolve it. That's going to be really hard because once you put a cemented DAO or structure in the ground, you don't really want to change too much about it. You don't have to be copying and pasting information or launching on other chains or hard forking, I don't think. But so that's a big challenge, and I'm not an expert in that, so I have to take advice and learn as I go along, and then try and get my head around it. So that's definitely a challenge. And as for what we want to achieve, I mean, we just want to show what's possible with coordination, of ideas and people who are aligned around the purpose of promoting human rights, and how we can somehow incentivize and reward that, so people understand this is a model that we can use to benefit societies, communities, or hyper-local situations, or whatever it might be. It's actually to look at what we want to achieve and incentivize it. Direct to source, no big institutions, no big funding programs and US aid situations and all this sort of stuff. Just decide what we want to record, and where possible, how it can be recorded and tokenized on the blockchain, and then reward it at source, at impact, And so they're challenges, they're things that are on my mind. It's what we want to get achieved in the area of human rights. So, we're going to give it a shot. True.
Because for other kind of projects, like people were saying that money were an issue because maybe they were not able to find money for the development of some platform.
Well, yeah, I can make a case pretty good. So we've managed to get funding so far. So I think combination between thinking it through and really understanding the use case and what we've got to offer, and then the fact that we've got an organization like Amnesty that's really willing to have the conversation and understand the upsides and see a vision. I just think it's a no-brainer, actually. So I'm kind of going into, not that we've applied for a lot of funding, but we've been successful with Project Catalyst on Cardano at this point. So and I think once you get sort of people who understand that this is worth doing, because also it sets a precedent for NGOs and worldwide organizations that they should look at an aspect of this, because you have to transform your whole organization into a DAO or whatever and run everything through it. That would be chaos, especially for like Amnesty. There's too much there. So, but for support or coordination and for cause-based or theme-based situations or initiatives or campaigning advocacy, it's a no-brainer as a tool as far as I'm aware. It's just the tokenomics side of it, how to keep incentive and people valuing their input and valuing what they receive out of the project, out of the DAO. They're tricky things. So, that'll require some adaptability and being swift on our feet for sure.
Yeah. And in the DAO now, like, are there more people that are working on it? Like, how is going? Like, I know you were saying that you were writing not the white paper, but the
white paper, yeah. Right, but there's two of us at the moment who are doing it. Sort of half time, I guess, 0.5 each. And Raz, the guy I'm working with, and he's got a network of people he's talking to, and we're talking, to them all, and so we're sort of networking with a lot. And I'm doing the same within the Amnesty stakeholder community, whether it's at Amnesty Tech in the UK or my regional colleagues. So we're just continuing to talk and iterate it, and so there's a reasonable amount of people involved talking it through. Same with our director here in New Zealand. She's really onto it and wants to know more and understands and can pose tough questions and things. So it's just about having conversations with people. Once people get it and get that blockchain is more than just Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency or whatever else, there's other use cases for it, and they understand what the technology is there for, then you can have conversations, because the penny drops with them after a while, and they think, well, if I can use it for that, then it means I can kind of use it for anything. Yeah, I mean, I said to my dad, down there visiting him, he's in his 80s, and I said, this house, you could tokenize it in the future, and the mechanism is not quite there now, and 100 people could own it, and then if it gets sold, then they get their 100th share automatically. There's no debating or anything like that. Or you could own 100th share of it. It would give you limited rights, obviously, to be in here, but you could have some rights of maybe a couple of days a year if it was a timeshare or whatever, and then you could just sell your 100th share, and it's very simple to do on the blockchain. There's no, you need oracles to determine the price, etc., or whatever it might be, but as far as the share and the ownership, real world ownership of assets and things, and the penny dropped. He was like, wow, so that means, I was like, yeah, that means for everything else, so potentially you don't need to own a full house, or if you can't afford it, then for young people, they should be thinking about these solutions, I think.
And so you're mainly two people that are coordinating working on the project, right? And I was wondering, like, is there any, I don't know, was a sort of choice, like, to just be two people, or like you are also finding other people to collaborate with? Because maybe, I don't know, someone listened to this episode, and I don't know.
Yeah, I talk to anybody who's interested and is wants to either help or wants me to help them a little bit or whatever. I'm happy to talk, because I always find that when I started out in the Web3 and blockchain, it's quite lonely, because there's a lot of people doing stuff, and it also suffers from the kind of, American centric kind of model where everyone, you've got influence, and so you get more influence, and it's kind of like, well, other people got other things to say. So I just gravitate to the ones who want to talk and can have interesting discussions. And, at the end of the day, that's what it's about for me. I mean, I've got enough work and things to do on other aspects, and my own projects and blockchain interests me. So I'm putting effort into it and enjoying talking to people. I mean, I find that Web3 is definitely the best ecosystem I've ever been a part of. And people think fast and they act fast as well, and I like that, because then I go back into the legacy world. I'm like things take forever to get done, it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
Especially when you start to think about using AI tools for structure and, understanding how to use them correctly, respectfully, content-wise and things. And I look at people who I work in, in other organizations, and I come in contact with them, and I'm trying to get things approved, and I just think, you've got to upskill, man. You've got to get with the times. Things are moving fast, and it's good, because we can keep the momentum going. So many projects and ideas get killed. The spirit gets killed because the bureaucracy just crushes it. And we shouldn't be doing that, anymore.
Yeah, people on the internet, they have found this way to cooperate. Also, I'm thinking about open source.
That's
And
great.
yeah. And it's great also that human conversation. And I mean, as you said, a lot of people do stuff. But yeah, maybe the most important thing is to talk, especially also now, because I'm thinking, I mean, my dream is that people can have, I don't know, this kind of conversation, and then maybe they are transcribed and they can analyze like in a collective way, so we can have all the different opinion, all the different views, and so maybe we can also coordinate like with a lot of people in a horizontal way.
Yeah,
But
yeah. That was one of your ideas about the being able to tap into other people's feeds, and their thought processes, and having open sourcing your tabs on your computer, kind of thing, your own workflow and things like that, is like a shared, and then analyzing that, and you get real time feedback from. I think you mentioned, example Vitalik. You're looking at a series of web pages, and then you get real time feedback from the algorithm saying, well, actually Vitalik is looking at these ones, which seem to be the next step forward in the evolution of these ideas. And it means you're not wasting time. You're actually, if they're able to, crowdsource and disseminate that kind of information, it's good for everybody, right? So was that the kind of idea that you were talking about?
I mean, I was thinking like about having saved all the good ideas that people can have in some sort of conversation. Like, I don't know. I mean, in traditional system, people vote. While with the system that we have now or that are being developed, I think that people can just talk about a certain problem. I don't know, we can talk about an issue, social, political issue, and then also other people do the same. And then it could be that we don't even have to vote because we already knows all our different point of views. And so like, I don't know, AI can mediate between different people, or eventually can also say, okay, Alex and Gareth are thinking the same way, so we discuss. Or maybe, I don't know, Alex and Farry are not, and Gareth are not thinking the same way, so we have to discuss about that. And all these kind of things that also could reduce polarization, because I think like personally, I've seen a lot of polarization in the past years, but for every kind of I don't know, conflict, could be Ukraine, Russia, could be Gaza, Israel, could be the situation about COVID. I mean, sometimes people are not really able to discuss, understand the other person point of view. And yeah, if I'm thinking about democracy, the future, I would like also to see a place, I mean, a world where people are, how do you say, like, I mean, they want to listen to the other people, like they want to understand their point of view. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's it was quite confused as a.
That's okay, bro. I think there's a big ask. It's getting late. So, or maybe you need another coffee. I probably need to head off soon too. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that I don't know if there's going to be one solution that fits all. I think there's going to be tools that people use to be able to connect with others and share knowledge and find out what other people are thinking in a much more rapid way. So they're looking for solutions. They can find that Alex in Bologna is also thinking about the same consensus building thing, and this is what he's working on. As long as it's open source or whatever, it's done with consent. And we can do that by asking AI tools certain things, but we don't really have that live sort of feed potential. I mean, I don't know how it would work. I haven't really thought about it properly, but the sharing of ideas and building collective consensus and building, iterating and building forward. It's kind of like an idea that is almost, it's like an exponential idea, really, eh?
Exponential idea, you mean? No.
Well, I mean, the knowledge that you could get out of that could be exponential when you think about all the human consensus of minds working together. Once it really kicks into gear, who knows where we could go,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that there is a lot of richness in having different ideas. And if we find, if we are ready to accept other people's point of view, and also if we use some instruments that help us in doing that, then we could actually see like a different kind of future and a different kind of world. But who knows?
I think I couldn't agree more. I think it's already happening, and it's going to happen. Whether it becomes ubiquitous, probably doubt it. But does it really matter? Probably not. I think we just need to take the control in our communities and join together with like minds, and then just use the technology to make it happen, and just leave the legacy system in our dust. That's what I think.
And I don't know, do you have a sort of kind of message for the people that are building new tools or that are working for this in the Web3 space on new solutions? I don't know, some...
No, I mean, not from the top of my head, but let me just think. I mean, what I would say really is that like everything's up for question, the structures and the way they're being brought up and the bounds of the education that we've been given and our ideas about our history and our potential as a human species. I don't think we really have been able to touch on it very much. So I think a huge missing piece in the coordination and in the freedom of expression and freedom of transaction nature of blockchain is a huge step forward. And I just encourage people to think about it, the core fundamentals of it and what it really means, and how you can perhaps slowly think about maybe applying it to your business or your life, or just even, you don't have to even do it on blockchain, but the idea that things that can be transparent and we can build consensus and we could distribute ownership and distribute the network across nodes, so there's no central intermediary or failure point, and things can be done peer-to-peer. You have to ask yourself, why would there be anything in the world that could be allowed to trump that? And using that word trump as well, but trump that idea. I mean, you show me a claim in the universe that says I can't do a transaction with a meeting in minds with Alex, financial, value-based or otherwise. Show me something that trumps that claim. There's nothing in the world of law or spiritual matters for me that trumps that claim. I'm free to transact as long as I do no harm. It's consensual with anybody in the world, and there's no government or any intermediary that can get in the way of that. And if they think they can, then I say prove it, because you can't. And in technology you can't, and in law and spirit you can't do that. But you got to make the claim. You got to step into those shoes and let it resonate and make the claim. In law, for me, part of that is making that claim obvious and stating it, expressing it in the world of commerce and law, and then embodying it and envisaging a future where we can just freely do what we need to do to transact and better the world and live happy lives and do what we want to do, build this new world. That's my message.
Thank
you, bro. Thank you for reaching out initially and all the cool stuff you're doing in Kernel. It's really inspiring. I mean, you just rattled off a few projects. I was like, each one is so deep. I was like, how do you find the time to do that stuff? So it's cool, it's great meeting you as well. And so thank you for reaching out. Peace to you.
Thank you a lot.
What about you? What's your message?
Do you have anything else to say? Otherwise, I close the recording.
No, man, I'm done. Good night from Auckland, New Zealand. Katikati in the bush, in the native bush. Beautiful off-grid in the native bush. In the dark, getting dark. My kids are asleep, so it's good. Everything's good.
Since an awesome place. Thank you.